and I always liked Portsmouth, but never really saw myself living here. And then I actually sat upstairs in this restaurant when it was the previous restaurant called Lindbergh's Crossing. And while we were sitting eating rabbit in the window of the restaurant I now own, my wife and I decided to move to Portsmouth, and I applied for a job the next day in this restaurant. My wife got laid off. We had a 8-month-old daughter, and I knew a flamenco guitarist who had played in the Ciento every Sunday, whose mother was looking for me to come down and consult on an opening of a restaurant in Mexico. And it was in a little town called San Miguel in the center of Mexico, about 2 hours north of Mexico City. And I went down to check it out, and I called my wife and said, I'm not coming home. I love it here, and I want to be here for the rest of my life. And she said, get your ass back here right now. I was the executive chef here for 4 years, and bought the restaurant from the owners in 2007. Renamed it Black Trumpet after my favorite foraged mushroom, and the rest is history. 8 years have been around now, almost to the day. As a chef, I've always been about exploring the boundaries of ingredients, their origins, just knowing everything about where an ingredient comes from before it gets to me, but also where it came from in the greater sense, like, you know, the travel of the tomatoes from the Americas to Europe to the United States again. You know, that history of food and the anthropology of food is has always been a big interest of mine. The space is kind of its own institution, and the legacy of that we had going for us here, and it wasn't a lot of risk, you know, quite honestly. It's hard for me to imagine any other faith than the one I've just enjoyed for the last 8 years. You know, it's not without its hardships and difficulties. Obviously, it's the restaurant business, but we've built something that's more than a restaurant, and it is really rewarding to think about the value that this has, not only in our community, but beyond. I have to say that I think at the outset of what is now considered the local food movement or the locavore movement, I was an idiot savant. I knew it was the right thing, I knew it was a good idea, but I would never have called myself one of the foremost pioneers of that idea. Another chef from our community was hosting a bunch of us for a magazine cover shot that he made a big lunch for, and then did a quick presentation. And this is a guy who's kind of shy. He doesn't do public speaking very well. And he stood up and he said that he had just prepared all of this food from ingredients that were within a 15-mile radius of where we were standing. And I thought, holy shit, that's a huge accomplishment, you know. When I started asking our purveyors, you know, where the meat came from, the first answer was we have no idea, you know. And imagine that today, like, no one would ever say that, because no chef would tolerate it. I didn't tolerate the answer, and I kept digging, and I would say, well, if you can't tell me where the meat comes from, then I don't want it. And as soon as you start looking at losing business, then that's when you start paying attention to the source of the food. It's something more than just a restaurant. It is it's a community driver, and by that I mean that not just Denise and myself, but our entire staff go out of the doors of this restaurant into the community, and they talk about what we do. They talk about the philosophy that drives us, about the ethic that, you know, the ethos that we believe in, and we hope that that's a contagious thing.